Hey folks, how's it going? My name is Ren, and welcome to episode 2 of my vlog. So, to start off with, today I'll be hosting the indie game picnic at the park nearby. Now, I don't usually host these sort of events, usually I'm an attendee. Hosting always feels like a lot of responsibility, but I wanted to do something really fun, really easygoing, so I organized the picnic. And the picnic is essentially just, a bunch of indie game devs gathering in a space, and let's talk, let's chill, let's vibe. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And I'm really glad I did it, and it should be a fun time. Now, aside from that, I've been working on a little app, a little mobile app. Now, I'm a fan of retro aesthetics, especially from the Game Boy era. I think the Game Boy was my first gaming handheld. It holds a place near and dear to my heart. So, I made a Game Boy camera app that creates this sort of Game Boy aesthetic, and I quite like the way it turned out. It's got different color palettes. Yep, here's a virtual one from the Virtual Boy. Quite like that one. This one's possibly my favorite. This kind of synthwave one because it has this kind of really cool pop art effect. But yeah, and there's various settings like dither, timers, filters, effects, videos as well, and a sprite editor for stickers. But yeah, I'm really happy I made this, and I'll most likely be releasing it later this month. Now, releasing it, that's really what I wanted to talk about today because I've been looking into some of my options. Of course, there's the Play Store, there's the App Store for Apple, and going through these processes before, I kind of understand them. I have a pretty good understanding of them, but at least with Google Play, it's pretty straightforward. You pay the €25 fee, and there you go. You can publish as much as you want, whenever you want. With Apple, it's a bit trickier, though. Because with Apple, you pay €100 yearly fee, and then you go through the whole review process, and if there are any IAPs or ads, there's also some kind of revenue cut, I believe, with that. Maybe not with the ads, but I know with IAPs at least. I'm not planning on having IAPs, I'm just saying that exists. But anyway, my deep dive led me to these conclusions, and one of the thoughts I had, one of the things that popped up that I remembered was that the Altstore exists. So, what is the Altstore? A lot of people surprisingly have not heard about the Altstore, even though there was this huge deal about the Altstore, especially coming from the EU, a huge deal about the Altstore last year, in fact, that the Altstore was made to be an alternative to having your iPhone and iPad apps in the App Store. Instead, they would be on the Altstore, and then you wouldn't have to worry about paying this €100 fee. You could have your own publication name. You could also you could make the apps available for the general public to install and download and install. And yeah, you didn't have to worry about the IAP cut, where Apple takes a certain percentage of your in-app purchases. So yeah, this was supposed to be like a big thing for game developers. Yet, it had a few. It was released. I think it was released maybe 2 years ago, but there was some EU agreement last year. There's an Altstore PAL, which is specifically for the EU, and yeah, it's there were some press releases, sure, but then the hype kind of died down. I haven't really seen or heard much coming from the Altstore from the EU regarding the Altstore, and it's a nice concept. It's a very interesting concept, you see. Because essentially, what you do is you have the app, the Altstore app, and then you add sources, and the sources can be created by anybody, and in those sources are the apps that people are publishing. So, let's say I'm a game developer, I'm an indie game developer, I want to publish my app, not on the Apple App Store, going through that whole process, but rather I want to publish it on the Altstore and have it available, just there, pretty much immediately. I would, publish my app, or make a build of my app, have it, publicly available. I'm not entirely sure how, I haven't really looked into that, but you would create a source, essentially. You would create a source which would list your app, and then you would have people install your source onto the Altstore app, and then they would see, oh, my app is there, okay. But yeah, you as a self-publishing entity would create your sources. So, game 1, game 2, game 3, they would all be part of the same source. Epic Games has an Altstore source where they publish, I guess, games that they don't want to go through the Apple App Store. They just have an Epic Games source where people can install games through there instead. And I guess that works out well for them because they don't. Well, we all know there was that whole kerfuffle between Apple and Epic Games regarding the in-app purchase thing, and this is their answer to it. Yet it's just not being promoted enough, and I don't understand where did the fall off happen. Is it just that Apple is like keeping this quiet, really trying to keep the press on it down or something? I don't know. That's conspiracy theory. Who knows? But like, what I'm trying to say is, it's quite useful. It's quite useful for self-publishing. It uses a method of installing the apps called sideloading, so you don't need to jailbreak your phone or anything like that. You don't need to do anything fancy. You just install an app, and then that app installs the apps that you need that you want to install. Yeah, I don't know. I need to possibly look into this a bit more and kind of figure out, okay, how can this actually be a tool that's useful for indie game developers? Now, I don't know too many indie game developers that are actually making iOS games or iPad games. There could be a market for it. There could be a subset of indie game developers who actually want to do this, but don't have an avenue of publishing their games onto the Apple App Store. And this could be the answer to that. But it doesn't negate the fact that you still do need to have like a Mac device to build your games anyway, so you still gotta pay that premium fee for the build processes and all. But when it comes to publication, this may be a way to deal with that. And in fact, one of my ideas that I've been spinning in my head was, okay, I could make the unsupervised games or unsupervised media source, or just the unsupervised source. And then if there's an indie game developer that wants to publish their app on the Altstore, then they could do it through my source, and then we just have indie games in one place, and it would just be it would be a kind of like a searchable source in which people can like, oh, okay, we promote this source, people install it on the Altstore, on their Altstore app, and then all the indie games are there, and that's how we run the promotion, that's how we run the publication, and it's all good. Now, whether or not this actually will work out, I don't know. It feels weird, possibly because I don't know too much about this, except for like my research within the past few days, and whether or not this is like actually something people will want to adopt, that's a whole different story too. The Altstore itself, I think, just needs to, like, it needs better press, it needs better presence as a tool for indie game developers to do publishing, and it's just a shame that it's just not there yet. But who knows? Maybe in the next couple years, maybe that'll change, or maybe the policies around Apple in the App Store will also change too. But until those policies do change, I highly recommend checking out the Altstore and maybe perhaps even talking to me, because I am very much interested in finding out how this tool can help indie developers start self-publishing. But yeah, I think this pretty much wraps up this video. Thank you for watching, and see you again next time.